G'day guys, Mike with the Outer Circle, and by now you would have seen quite a few of the leaks coming out for the Horus Heresy 2.0. And a lot of people have been messaging me about those leaks, asking, are these things real? Short answer is yes, the long answer is no. The reason that I say no is because we know that the rules have been reworked from the leaks. We don't know to what degree. And part of my original hesitancy in releasing any leaks and why I didn't, one of the many reasons was that I wanted to give them their best chance over at Games Workshop and Forge World to not disappoint us as a community. To trial and playtest and, play around with the system and come up with the best solution, the best possible system for Horus Heresy 2.0. And now we've reached the stage where they're doing that. We know the game is coming out around the end of June. We know that it's going to be late June, probably around the 25th, something like that. And therefore it's going to be locked in very shortly. But we also know that that playtest that was going around is nearly 6 months old now, to the best of my understanding. And a lot can change in that time, because about now we'll be looking at going to print, most likely. Depending, of course, on they may have printed already, but I imagine that they are creative with the truth when it comes to their printing deadlines. I think they print their books very last minute, and that's why so many little mistakes end up in them last minute, because it's sort of a rush to the finish line with many things. Now, obviously, people would have seen things like Medusas and Basilisks and such are not in the current leaks. There's a list of the units that are out there. I can confirm that, yes, pretty much the list of what is and isn't there is true, that if it didn't have a model before, it probably is gone. But some units like Legion Basilisks and Medusas did not make it into the book. Neither did the Land Raider Achilles, neither did the Kestis Assault Ram, and Box Dreadnoughts, Cordis Dreadnoughts, many other things. Now, that said, it doesn't mean they're gone. No one's ever really gone. Because we need to think about the methodology here. Now, the other day I spoke about the influences and how I didn't really care that they weren't Horus Heresy influences. For some people, that meant that I was disappointed I didn't get to go. I don't know how that logic works, but apparently that's the logic. No, I spoke about it and I said, look, I don't care because they're not trying to target the existing Heresy player. What they're trying to do is get people who play other game systems to spend money on this one to make their investment in it worthwhile. Now, of course, the interesting thing about all of this is that they're buying, I shouldn't say buying, they have built a bunch of new plastic vehicles. I've seen the plastic Predator, I've seen the plastic Rhino, I've seen the plastic Spartan, and it looks like we've all seen the new plastic Contemptor Dreadnought as well, in blurry still frame images. So, where does the Medusa and the Basilisk sit on that list, or the Kestis Assault Ram? Well, they don't sit on that list, and it becomes a question of, do they want to be trying to mainstream a game and locking mainline units behind a Forge World resin paywall? And I don't know that they do when it comes to vehicles. I can definitely see it for super heavy vehicles, like Fellblades, Fellglaves, that kind of thing, Mastodon. I cannot see it for something like the Basilisk or the Medusa. I can see it, maybe some of the different variants of Vindicator, maybe just becoming an upgrade kit where, as it kind of is now, it's an upgrade kit, whereas the Basilisk and Medusa are very much resin models. They might even do the Vindicator in plastic. They've gone as far as doing a Predator in plastic, and it's not much of a stretch to get from that to a Vindicator, but silly things have happened. So, that's my belief of why those particular vehicles haven't shown up yet, because either they're getting squatted, or they're going to leave them out for the time being until they can come up with a plastic variant. Now, if they go for squatting them, that's a very, very poor choice. because, well, I guess, can I even use squatting now? Yeah, I'm not going to go into that. If they get rid of those vehicles, it's a big screw you to many existing Heresy players, I think we can all agree. So therefore, it is not in our best interest. But again, the company, and this is not the developers of the game, I'm talking the company does not care what it's in our best interest. The company cares about what makes them money. As far as they're concerned, the existing Heresy players have already coughed up their share of money for the game. They want new players to be coughing up money for the game. And in their ideal world, we'll all just down tools and put away our existing sets of Heresy and buy a new. The developers, of course, don't want that, or at least I like to believe they don't want that. Most of them seem like pretty decent people, even though I give them a pretty hard time. And that's because I'm looking at it from the realm of player satisfaction and common sense, and unfortunate reality is that's not how it goes in these corporate enterprises. Because, well, again, marketing and management people get involved. They turn what should be simple things into long, convoluted processes. And the thing is, it's not a bad game system, Heresy 2.0. It's definitely got some flaws. Like, I was talking about the other day in a previous video I did on Heresy 2.0, and how I think the reactions is going to be just terrible. That they're a dumb inclusion. And whilst the idea of having people being able to participate in the opposing player's turn is cool on paper, it doesn't necessarily balance out in reality, at least as implemented. There are tons of game systems that have these really good I go, you go mechanics where I move one unit, you move one unit. We share a shooting phase, whatever it might be. There are good systems for that out there, but taking 7th edition rules and just giving it Yu-Gi-Oh! Track card to be played, especially at the lower points limits, those things are going to be brutal if they're used wisely. And I don't think it's just necessary, to be honest. I don't think it was needed. On that long list of inclusions is, again, stuff I spoke about before I even read the leaks, which was movement values. Changing movement values on basic Space Marines and how much that throws out the balance of the game. I stand by that. Because 6 inches has been the cornerstone of the game system, movement values just... They are a narrative choice, but they are stupid as a gameplay choice. And I think how the game plays out will bear that out. Especially when you consider that in the rules I have, the land speeders move slower than the Saber tank does. The Saber tank is faster than land speeders. It's really bizarre. To me anyway. And some of the movement values have just gotten ludicrous. Like the Saber, I think, is 18 inches is his move speed. It's just ludicrously fast. There are plenty of vehicles that can cross no man's land, the center of the table, and be in the other deployment zone in turn 1. Basically. So, oh boy. They've kept it similar to 7th, yes, but if you actually try, and this is the feedback I've gotten from other people who've touched the system, is if you actually try and play a game, so many of the rules have the same names as in a previous edition, but play out very differently. So you find yourself looking into the rulebook a lot and getting very confused by the process. I had one friend who was playing a game of it just today, and that was their major feedback, was the game went really slow. They played 3 turns in the time they could have played 6 because they kept having to go back in, double check a rule because that rule had changed. That's a major flaw. And I don't like change for the sake of change. I've been very vocal about that on the channel before, that every time you change something, you need to have a very, very specific reason as to why, and it needs to be a net improvement, not a sidestep. And many things are a sidestep. Because, well, let's look at that movement value. So, movement values went up. Okay, Marines moving 7 inches now. Well, because Marines move 7 inches, they cross the table faster. And their transports are moving 14, not 12. They cross the table faster too. So when units cross the table faster, you now have to be able to kill them faster before they get into you and chew up all your nice squishy guys. So they increase the firepower in the game. Las cannons all have Sunder. What else is there? I think all auto weapons pretty much are rending, like auto cannons, assault cannons, that kind of thing are like rending. There's lots of pinning, and there's lots of pinning which has negative morale modifiers, and base leadership is now 7 for Marines, so you can see where this is going. the killing power went dramatically up. Models are crossing the table faster. They had to then do something about that and go, oh crap, models are dying too fast, especially tanks. Well, they added more hull points, but they had to add more hull points because they gave all the las cannons sundering. So they made the las cannons a lot better at punching through armor. But because all these vehicles now have all these extra hull points and all this firepower, they have no choice but to give those las cannons sunder, or else they're going to struggle to take them down before vehicles become the dominant meta of the game. And all of this is, in my opinion, directly traceable, like the forensic crime scene, back to moving the movement value of models up by 1 single inch on basic Marines. And then you've got the Tartarus Cataphracti conundrum, where Tartarus is always favourable to Cataphracti from purely gameplay point of view, not from the rule of cool. I love Cataphracti armor. I put it in every army because I just think it's cool. But Cataphracti had a trade-off. It was better invulnerable save, but you lost the ability to run or sweeping advance or overwatch. Those are all very important abilities, and Tartarus had all those abilities. It just lost the ability, it just had a slightly worse save. Well, in this new edition, they really, in the rules as they currently exist, and again, these have changed, but they really punish Cataphracti because now it moves slower than Tartarus as well. So it still has that 4-up invul, but now it's moving slower, so it got even worse than before in proportion. So to me, that's a bad call. And some legions, let's take Imperial Fists for example. Imperial Fists are just getting a flat ballistic skill buff in the original leaks to all auto weapons. Well, auto weapons is a category, includes things like rotor cannons, assault cannons, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that made that list was the main guns on a Fellblade. So because the Imperial Fist focused on bolter drill, they're better at firing a Fellblade's main gun. They're +1 ballistic skill. It's just silly. But because it's a flat, all models that the Legionaries Astartes Imperial Fist rule, well, that translated to Predators. So you have Predator battle tanks, which can come in a squadron of 5. And you could have 4 heavy bolters and a Predator autocannon on there. So you've got the autocannon is rending, you've got all those heavy bolter shots, it's all ballistic skill 5, and you get 5 of those tanks, and it's only going to be like 560 points or so. And then you can get 4 squads of tactical Marines, and you're not even 1,000 points yet. So it's going to encourage a meta of squadrons of Predators and such for, an Imperial Fist player who's looking to just kick ass in game. Again, under the older rules that were written, which again have been modified. But how much so, I don't know. And I don't imagine much. Whereas I've got someone like the Raven Guard, whose special rules, I think Raven Guard has just been fucked over by it. That's the word I'll use, because they've got their existing system where it's like a infiltrate for the basic power armor boys, and like Furious Charge variant for like Terminators, and something different again on the jump troops. Okay. Well, there's nothing in there about vehicles or dreadnoughts, so they just get nothing. So it's like, hang on, Imperial Fists, just for existing, get something good. Raven Guard have to actually work and play and utilize their Legionaries Astartes tactics, and it's going to be a one use only sort of use it wisely or it won't pay off sort of thing. To me, that's terrible rules writing, because that flat Imperial Fist buff is every turn of the game. Every time you fire a gun, it's paying for itself, pretty much. Whereas the Raven Guard one, if you don't get a good infiltrate at the start, that's it. You've used your Legionaries Astartes for all your infantry on foot, and that sucks. Especially when you figure in the fact that, augury scanners are on everything now. Tactical squads have augury scanners. Veteran squads have augury scanners. I think even Terminators have augury scanners. So no infiltrating within 18 inches of them. So you just gutted the Raven Guard Legion. Sure, their jump troops definitely will still hit very hard. Okay, like Blood Angels jump troops. Raven Guard's jump troops will get in fast and they will hit like a freight train, yes. Unfortunately, the Raven Guard do not play like that. Only specific people play Raven Guard like that. Things like drop pod assault and infiltration tactics were very much Raven Guard staples. I was an infiltration Raven Guard fan with close air support. Well, that's not really viable anymore, at least not as it used to be. And with the changes to plasma and the massive, massive nerfs to plasma, All my 3 Mordathan squads are completely different now because my Combi Melter squad stayed strong. My Combi Plasma squads of Mordathan, which I have 2 of, they kind of suck now because Plasma's a Strength 7, AP 4 with kind of like a rending on a 4+. That makes him AP 2. So now half of your wounding capability, the 2s and 3s that used to roll that were AP 2, it's just not there. And that really sucks because, of all things, Plasma didn't need a nerf. It was not one of those things that Heresy players were like, oh no, Plasma is just so strong, I can't have any games with it. No, Plasma's fine. Yeah, it can be overutilized, but like I played a friend, Kieran, okay, has these awesome Elf Legion, and he plays a really Dreadcore heavy and Seeker heavy, and usually with Terminator backup, and the Terminators are loaded with Combi Plasma and Plasma Blast Guns. His Seekers have got Plasmas and Combi Plasmas, and, you know, jumping out of transports and rapid firing that Plasma off. But he pays so many points for that, and, you know, he could be outplayed. You know? It wasn't the end of the world. I didn't sit there going, well, I just feel powerless against this. I hope they nerf it in the next edition. No, quite the contrary. I was like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. You know, once he's fired all those Plasma, the reign of death is over once all that Combi Plasmas fire, and I can just set to work. And that's what happened. And I don't think anyone would have a bad thing to say about playing the guy or playing his army. He's a lovely person. So, you know, these are the things that are going through my head, okay, when I think about Heresy 2.0. And so when people ask me, you know, oh, is my army still viable? I legitimately don't know, because even if I go through the rules I've got, they're not true to what has happened. Again, they've been rewritten somewhat since the leak version I've got. But again, I don't imagine it's a huge amount because they just tend to not modify things too much based on feedback over there. And it's really harsh to say, but, well, history has borne that out with a lot of playtesters in previous systems saying, well, we told them not to do this, this, and this, and they just went ahead and did it anyway. You know, that's a big concern of mine. So, like I said, I'm still not putting the leaks out there. I mean, I'm speaking about some of the things, but just saying how I don't like them if they were to implement them this way now. I still don't want to put the full leaks out there because they could change a ton, and I could be totally wrong with what I do, and I'll build up all this ill will and rage towards the company, and maybe the company will just go, you know what, it's not worth putting up with this crap from the nerds. Let's just release the books as is, half-ass it, and then stop support. And I don't think people really want that. I don't want that. So I'm trying to give them their best shot at giving us a great game. But be warned, guys, it just might not happen. Because there's some huge, huge warning signs there right now. Anyway, that's all from me. That's all I have to say about that for now. And those who are wondering about their legions, if they are good or bad, most of them are about the same. Some of them have had some major shakeups, like, well, that Traders document's getting around, obviously, like Death Shroud going to 3 wounds, things like that. You know, cool, great to be a Death Guard. I'd say Raven Guard and Sally's probably come off the worst out of everyone. The Sally's are pretty similar to before, but they've lost units, and Fire Drakes, as I saw them, suck balls. Because all the other Terminators in the game are 2 wounds now, and yet Fire Drakes are still being priced as special snowflakes, and they're like over 700 points for 10. With the Hammer and Shield, it's just woefully expensive. You can buy like 15 or 17 Tartarus Terminators with Storm Shields in the Imperial Fists army with Power Fists for the same price. Like, you'd rather that, wouldn't you? Anyway, that's all. I hope you get something out of the episode, and I hope I didn't piss off too many people with the sort of leaky stuff I spoke about, but again, I'm getting a lot of messages from really concerned people who've seen this and going, hang on a minute, is my army no longer playable? Like, I have 4, you know, of this tank, or I've got a bunch of Medusas in my army, or I have 2 Kestis Assault Rams. It's like, well, rules as I've seen them, yeah, they're not playable. And that terrifies those people who spent money on the game. And if Forge World and Games Workshop don't think that's going to burn players if they make that choice, then they are terrible terrible company if they don't realise it's going to burn their players severely. So I strongly urge them, with whatever they do release, to make some accommodation for those existing units. Don't go writing things off. You can get away with it on special characters. You can't get away with it on $300 vehicles. But hey, what would I know? The company's always right. See you all next time.